Kia ora koutou, ko Rolleston College Haureka Haumata Te Wahimahi, ko Matt Nicoll toku ingoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Matt Nicoll from Rolleston College. We're a new school this year, only year 9, which is very fortunate, and doing things very, very student-centred, even so far as our school rules are sort of still being developed with our learners at the moment. So quite an awesome place to be if working with students and giving them a lot of agency is something you're excited about. What I'm going to talk about, though, is not about how the school runs, but about a course that was put together that I had the pleasure of being able to teach last term, which is called Proof. First of all, though, a bit of a background about how we run our timetable, because this has actually allowed us a lot more flexibility. Our timetable is broken down into 3 100-minute blocks. Our core is sort of like form time or tutor time on steroids. It's where we do pastoral care, academic care. We also do inquiry processes and that sort of thing, and a thing called quest projects, where they get at least 1 a term of those. And we also do Rolleston Reads, which is sort of a literacy, reading, blogging type thing, and a few other bits and pieces in there. Connected learning, CON, is where science, maths, English and social studies always live, and 1 other learning area per term over year 9 and 10 to make sure that we have full curriculum coverage no matter what selected or option subjects learners take. Proof is a selected, so I had them for 2 100-minute blocks per week for a term, and they had 2 selecteds, so they had Proof and another one. So selected learning, as I said there, 2 blocks. We designed our initial selected learnings last term based on things that we as teachers were passionate about, and then the learners opted into those, and the ones that had good enough numbers ran and the others didn't. They were a mixture of multidiscipline or very specialized. So for example, we got Japanese language and culture, Chinese language and culture, that sort of thing, with specialized, whereas Proof itself, the one that I'm going to talk about today, while being heavily based in the sciences, this was multidiscipline. It was looking at some social studies or quite a lot of social studies and English learning areas as well. So when we set up the course, actually I wasn't part of designing it. I was just lucky enough to get to teach it. The initial designers of the course, only one of them got to teach it because of timetable constraints, and then I got asked if I would step in, and more than happily said yes. So our sort of 3-prong attack was that we were going to look at forensic science, the legal system, and the idea of justice and beyond reasonable doubt and police work and interrogation, that sort of thing. So in our planning last year, end of last year, we had to think, okay, well, where could the learners take this? What should we be prepared to offer, workshops, learning opportunities, and so on? And in the end, when we looked at the number of things there, and this was only a few of them that you see here, we realized that we were up for hiding to nothing. And the best thing for us to do was to actually see what the learners wanted to do and have a system of, or set the course up in such a way that it allowed for a lot of student agency. Then we got to see who was in the courses and how it was going to be set up. So we had 2 classes, quite big uptake for this, and there's huge demand for it to be run a second time this year. Remembering we've only got 220 learners in total, so we had 33 of them doing this course. So Kelly did the Monday and Tuesday class, and Danny and I did the Thursday and Friday course. So really lucky with our student to teacher ratio, because we're overstaffed this year. Those numbers will be more like the 1 to 25, 1 to 30 next year, depending on demand. So again, in our planning, we had to think, well, what's going to happen without a science teacher in the Monday, Tuesday course? Because we do want to make sure that forensics can be covered by all 33 learners. And Kelly, while she was very happy to step outside her comfort zone, definitely was also honest enough that she needed a bit of support with that. Well, again, it was in how we decided to run the course. We planned for it to be very, very learner driven. So they would do the research, they would find the mentors to help them. But then we also thought, well, hang on, we have to be practical here. There are going to be some workshops, some learning activities that we're going to run in the science labs, and I'm going to need to run them. So I came out of my connected learning class now and then, which was on at the same time as Kelly's class, to run some things on whether it's blood splatter or fingerprinting or something like that that was more forensic science. Or the learners came out of their connected class and joined my class and then caught up on their work in their next proof class. So they caught up on their connected learning in proof the next week. So there's a lot of flexibility, and hopefully that's the way the school's going to run from here forth as well, that we can have that flexibility to allow that student agency. So our plan was start with a crime scene. So the very first thing I did is I spent my summer holidays in heaven writing a crime scene and planning evidence that I could plant and things like that. So I got to write a play basically, and then go and mess up one of the labs completely as a crime scene. The idea of that, of course, was a bit of a hook. Also see what the learners brought with them and their prior knowledge, preserving a crime scene, any forensic techniques they currently had, and what sort of things do they seem to be really keen on and interested in. As well as that, I set up a Google site where I put all of the evidence, interviews, synopsis, that sort of thing for this crime scene, so the learners had ubiquitous access to the evidence. They didn't have to be in the lab to get it. If they forgot to collect something, it at least was duplicated online. Thankfully, I had a lot of colleagues who were happy to give up their time to be interviewed, and that was to play a role in as suspects or witnesses for the crime. Then we did some reflection on how well they thought they did on solving the crime, and they started doing a bit of reflection before we told them what really happened as well. So we wanted to see what they thought about how well they did before they knew if they were right or wrong. So they're focusing more on process than outcome. And then we told them how well they did. You'll see the use of solo taxonomy there. We are pretty big on using that at our school as a way of assessment for learning rather than assessment of learning. So this was why it was used for self-assessment and peer assessment here. This is also where we got the formal writing into our course as well. Unfortunately for our class, Danny's and mine, it was the same day they had to do formal writing in their connected class. So they were a bit sick of formal writing by the end of that day, but they were also pretty good at it. Then from the reflections, we let them have a bit of exploring. I did have that as play, but it wasn't. It was exploring. We had this website available for them. We had some videos. We did some workshops, particularly on observing, but also some simple little skills that they might be interested in, to see what they were keen on. And then we asked for their voice. And so I set up this Padlet and just said, look, put in 2 or 3 things you want to learn about. And that helped us design the rest of the course. So this gave them the voice on designing what they could learn about, helped us get them into teams so that they could actually work collaboratively, and hopefully find some mentors. It allowed me to plan some workshops, it allowed Kelly to plan some workshops, and allowed Danny to plan some workshops on the things that used our personal strengths to support what the learners wanted to do. And it also allowed us to set up some, set the students up for doing research, to find things out for themselves, to practice it for themselves, to pitch to us what they wanted to try and do, so that we weren't running the course, they were running the course. The plan, and I'm going to emphasize, and this was part of our formal assessment, again using a solo map to plan this out. So this was how well they learnt that skill, was actually part of what we were assessing them in through the course. In the plan, and I emphasise that quite strongly, was that we'd have another crime scene for them to apply the learned skills in another manufactured crime scene, and then ultimately in the last couple of weeks them to celebrate all of their learning in whatever way they wanted, whether it's another crime scene, a murder mystery meal for their whānau or friends or teachers, maybe bringing their whānau in and them teaching them what they learned. We weren't sure what they'd want to do. The reality, though, this is our rubric. The reality was we really struggled with finding mentors. and the learners really struggled with finding mentors. So what that did is that slowed us down. It meant that we had to run more workshops and spend more time on research, which meant that we ran out of time to do a third crime scene or whatever. We couldn't do our celebration. But also what happened was we had 2 learners who were adamant that what they wanted to get out of this course was writing a mock crime scene. So by the ethos of the course and the school, why not? Let's let them write it. It took a lot of work off my shoulders, and that rather than me writing a crime scene that accommodated all of the skills that other learners were acquiring and learning, these 2 learners had to find out what others were learning and then write their crime scenes accordingly. And I just acted as a bit of a mentor to help with that writing a play, I suppose you'd say, and setting up the crime scene. And the amount they learned was amazing. So what ended up happening was that the 2 crime scenes ended up being our celebration. We broke my class in 2. Half of them set up one crime scene, half set up the other, and then they swapped over and solved each other. And Kelly's class also had to solve them. And that was the way that we celebrated the learning of the course. And then we went back to that rubric that I had before, this one here, and actually gave them, I don't like calling it a grade, but gave them feedback on the progress they made through the course in these 3 areas. The last one, be collaborative, is a big deal for us at the moment because it's sort of a bit of a focus for our Rolleston spirit, so our values of the school. I'm not going to carry on because of time, but I've also, if I can share the slides through the blog, I will. I've also got some links there that are quite useful, including my own reflections on it. And then there's a whole lot of slides of learner voice from the girls who wrote the crime scenes, and one who has actually played the part of a suspect. So as I say, I'm just flicking those rather than going through them because there are quite a few of them. And there is proof.